And we are back for another OFT live chat. I'm your host, Robert Pallin, as usual. As usual, Noel isn't here. He's too lazy to come onto these live chats, so I got to find somebody else. And that somebody else for the past 3 weeks has been Jason Hartley of MMA On Point, who's running on, I believe, 0 hours sleep right now. Is that correct?
This is accurate. This is totally accurate, yeah.
Why are you running on 0 hours sleep?
Because I'm a moron, and the way I work is I just work until I get done with something, and sometimes that means not sleeping all night. And so the video that just went up on MMA On Point is the 10 greatest fighters of all time, which is obviously a ton of pressure. I know, tens of thousands of people are going to be watching it within the next hour. And so there's just that part of you just meticulously spend time on everything, except your words, which I'm slurring right now.
We'll get there.
It's just really difficult, but I'm doing good. My mood's upbeat, and the people I've shown the video so far seem to like it, although I'm not feeling too confident because it is the 10 greatest fighters of all time. So we'll see what the reaction is after an hour or so.
Yeah, it's a subjective list, so I disagree with your picks already. I haven't even seen it. I just disagree because it's subjective. But yeah, it's going to be excellent. I can't wait to look at it, and go check it out after this video, after this live chat. If you haven't seen one of these live chats before, it is what it says on the tin. You ask some questions, we'll answer them. We have a few things we want to talk about. There's been some crazy news this week. We had Darren Till on the podcast this week. If you haven't seen this week's podcast, go check it out. We actually got picked up by a lot of MMA sites, which is always pretty cool. And Darren had some interesting things to say about some of the other interesting things he said earlier or late last week. But also give this a like and give it a share as well. If you're on Reddit, share this on Reddit because that helps, and tell people to come over because it's always a bit of fun over here, and the more people we get into the chat, the better. One thing I want to start with, Jason, is I want to get your thoughts on the Darren Till thing, because that kind of blew up for us today and yesterday, and it was big news, and a lot of people were on one side. So essentially I'm just going to give a background of what happened for the people who don't know. Darren done an interview or a post-fight or post-presser scrum last week after the Los Angeles presser, and he was asked about his fight coming up with Tyron Woodley, and basically what he said was, I don't care about anything else but this fight, and he referenced his pregnant girlfriend, and he referenced his daughter who hasn't seen in a year, and said, I don't give a fuck right now. I just want to get this fight, and I want to build my legacy. Now, when we had him on the show this week, he kind of said that his girlfriend was laughing about it, because the whole idea of what he meant was, for the next 5 weeks, the only thing that's important is this fight. Nothing else is important. So basically it's that old kind of fighter adage of my mindset is on this fight, nothing else. But I think a lot of people had a few concerns over the way he worded his message. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, so I know he was on the show, and I know he's a friend of the show and all that stuff, but I wasn't necessarily convinced, because sure, you're in the zone for the next 5 weeks and you don't care about anything else, but the fight makes total sense. But he was like, I haven't seen my daughter in a year, she's out in Brazil. I don't give a fuck. I don't care about any of that. So his explanation didn't necessarily convince me that he really cared. And I can understand what a single-mindedness approach to things is, like the most successful people statistically tend to be that way. You hear Jonathan Haidt or psychologists talking about this really often. It's a very common thing. So it makes sense that he would be that way and be as successful as he is. But the way he said it, definitely, it's like when those words are leaving your mouth, you're not like realizing like, hey, I just basically told the world I don't care about my kids, and I haven't seen one of them in a year. Like, you can't really excuse that one. Like, you haven't seen your kid in a year. And I mean, you make way more money than the average person. I mean, you make at least 6 digits. At least, he's making 3 or 4 times the 6-digit, entry mark there. There's no excuse why you can't fly over there and see him. I mean, it's not like he was in one continuous camp this entire time, So I didn't buy it. I got where he was going for, and I got that he was being selfish, and I get that he's super motivated. But I think he exposed a little bit too much of his internal mindset, and this is what they talk about all the time. Sometimes this is you seeing behind the curtain. This is how the sausage is made, and sometimes it isn't that pretty. and it's hard to get behind that. I don't think he could necessarily defend it. I'm not an SJW or anything like that where I'm like, hey, get out of here. I actually loathe, the freak out culture. So I'm definitely not freaking out or anything like that. But I also don't think his comments at all rectified him saying I haven't seen my kid in a year and I don't care to. That's what he said.
Tom, I just laughed there because Tom from MMA on Point said, let me know when you guys want to chat Logan Paul. Tom, if you stick around, I could use you because I know nothing about Logan Paul, and this is the whole idea of this chat. I want to learn some stuff about Logan Paul and KSI and this big boxing match that's coming up. I have a bit of a different take, and maybe it's because we spoke to him and it's more that personal kind of 1-to-1 thing, right, or 2-to-1 thing, if you will. Sure. But the impression I got was that it's more so that he's kind of just displaying how single-minded he is going into this fight. He was trying to explain that he has all these other things that he really cares about. So he really cares about his daughter who's away. He really cares about his girlfriend who's pregnant. But right now, to you, Tyron Woodley, I don't give a fuck about anything else but beating you and cementing my legacy. That's what I got from it. Originally, I did read into it, and I did even like a lot of people saying that he was taken out of context. He wasn't taken out of context. He said what he said, and it was in context. I think what he was missing was, and I said this after the interview, was that he was missing, for the next 5 weeks, I don't give a fuck about X. For the next 5 weeks, I don't give a fuck about Y. But he said, I have this, and I don't give a fuck. It was a bit, he could have worded it a little better, I think.
But that year comment,
I know,
it throws a wrench in all that, because that doesn't add up. If you're just saying it's for the next 5 weeks, but you're also saying you haven't seen your daughter in a year, which is outside of a fight camp, dude, you're saying you don't care about your kid and you don't care to go see him. That's what you're, in my mind, that's what you're saying. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I wonder what everybody's opinion is on this. Give your comments down there. And again, if you haven't watched the interview, check it out. It's on this page. Go subscribe to the page and you can check it out after this. But you can also check out the previous comments he made, which was the more controversial ones, I think. But yeah, there was plenty of news, and I didn't really know what to put in the title of this video because there's so much kind of crazy news that came out this week. Yeah, another thing I wanted to talk about, and we've talked about it too much leading up to the announcement and after the announcement, so I'm not going to give too much of an opinion. I already did, but we haven't heard your opinion on Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov officially been announced. Were you surprised by the announcement? Were you expecting it? And what's your thoughts now that it's been made? Has your mind changed on who you think is going to win?
Yeah, I was cautiously optimistic. I think the moment most people thought it was going to happen is, Conor McGregor was posting all these tweets leading up to it and these Instagram posts showing pictures of him in training and all these things. And then finally, just a couple hours before the event went down, he posted this picture with a UFC glove. And it's like, okay, this is pretty for sure going to happen. But they pulled a nice one on us because they didn't immediately do it and they saved it for last. It was a really short press conference. But, once you saw that, it was like, okay, things are great. And I'm stoked about it. I think that the UFC and the MMA world in general it's kind of been on a slump, and there's no secret about that. I think everyone's been talking about that. So I think it's a beautiful thing to see that, okay, we've got this nice uptick here, and it's the right match to make.
Oh,
it's one of those times where the money fight is the right fight here, So 100% on board with it. I know a lot of people were throwing out criticisms because they heavily used what Dana White was up against, but I just call that turning lemons into lemonade pretty much. So they had a really bad fiasco with the Dolly situation, but now it's great press for the fight, and it adds way more fuel to that fire. But still same prediction. I'm still saying Conor McGregor. And the classic thing is get it done in the first 2 rounds or you're pretty much screwed. You're pretty much either you're going to run out of your gas tank or Khabib's just going to still be going strong and he's going to get you down. So first 2 rounds, some sort of knockout, TKO or something like that is my prediction.
Dan from Oregon. Hello, sickos. Hello, Dan. Hope you can stick around. MMA on Point. Yo, I think that's you. Farrell Conley. Hopefully I can get to watch this, some of this show. No guarantee I'll last till the whole episode. Why not, Farrell? Stick around. What's wrong? Are you tired? It's only 8 o'clock. It's only 20 past 8 in Ireland. I know you're from Ireland. You can stay awake. Interview with Darren Till was excellent. Auto Roadrunner, thank you. Dan from Oregon. Dana says GSP won't get the winner of Conor Khabib. We defo know it's happening now. That's the truest statement ever. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. If GSP comes to Dana White and says, I want the winner of this, and actually asks him, I don't think there's any way this is not happening if the winner of Khabib and Conor wants it. I think it happens. No doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Diaz thing is the interesting part of that.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that, the Diaz thing, walking out? Do you sympathise with what happened with Diaz? Do you understand why he was upset?
On Submission Radio, Luke Thomas was on there yesterday, I want to say it was, and he talks about how there was a lot more details that were behind the scenes that kind of made everything that he did a little bit more, actually a lot more understandable, but he couldn't divulge it, which made it really interesting. But from what you're seeing from the outside, it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you just got this massive fight for the first time in 2 years. You said you just got out of a massive lawsuit and you're going to walk out of a fight because you felt slighted in some way. It's like, if you beat Poirier, you're going to get that fight with Conor and the biggest payday of your life again, you know? So from my perspective, I'm feeling kind of spent on the Diaz brothers. It's just like, dude, you guys have been teasing coming back for so long. I don't even care what you have to say anymore. I just want to see you fight, and then I'll care again. You know, like, but until then, I'm just being teased endlessly and let down. So it's like, dude, I'm done.
Noel, if you haven't watched the main show at all, and Noel is my regular co-host on the main show, and he's in a similar situation. He doesn't think that he thinks that Nate and Nick get a bit too much love from MMA media. He thinks that they are big stars and they are great fighters, but you know, the kind of stuff that happens with them not taking fights, being out on the sidelines for so long, getting upset over things like this. He just thinks that sometimes they're giving a bit too much leeway when other fighters wouldn't get that leeway.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And I mean, the same thing is levied at Conor. So to be fair, you know, the top stars in the sport always get some extra leeway. But it seems like Dana White is pushing it off to someone else, and I don't really understand how that works either.
Yeah, who is that guy? That random guy? I love the way he was like, somebody in our company loves the Diaz brothers. I'm going to let them deal with it. Who is this person? This mystery person?
In the scrum after the Tuesday Night Contender Series, I think he said his name was Hunter. I think he actually said his name. He's like, yeah, Hunter's going to have to work on that one. Hunter Hearst Helmsley, I guess.
Why was I thinking that as well?
Yeah, just because, whatever. I feel bad. I feel like a bad person.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I hope the Diaz brothers, I hope Nate, I suppose, we'll see what happens with Nick, but I hope Nate does fight because, you know, he's very, very entertaining.
So good.
Yeah, so good. Tom Ransom of MMA on Point said Jason's favourite fighter. What are you talking about?
He's talking about Logan Paul. The funny thing is we talked about the possibility of whether or not we should do a Logan Paul video. And I was like, no way. And then here we are in this chat talking about Logan Paul. We
haven't spoken about him yet.
I think he was just kind of... Yeah, we haven't even gotten there yet.
The thing is, though, if you're coming here to be educated on Logan Paul, again, I need some help. Somebody get some Logan Paul fans. Tweet to Logan Paul right now, or do it on Twitter. Say, we're talking Logan Paul here, or we want to know about Logan Paul. Come tell us, and then we can tell the world exactly why Logan Paul is cool with his blonde curly hair.
It's ironic because I actually know a lot about him.
Do you?
Yeah, because like I said, I follow YouTube, you know, like channels that talk about YouTube culture, like H3H3 and Philip DeFranco, and they pretty much all brought it up. And he's a guy that came from the Vine days. Did Vine ever get popular?
It did, actually. Yeah, it was big. It was mostly just, it's like really short videos of mostly pranks and stuff and little skits. Yeah.
Well, he and his brother used to have a Vine channel called like Average White Boys or something like that. And they would do these like synchronized dance and like comedy skits. It was just the absolute worst. And so when the whole Vine thing fell apart, these guys migrated into YouTube. And you always just kind of got this like seedy vibe from them from the beginning when they were on Vine. You're just like, these guys don't really come off like the best kind of people. But they're blonde, they're in shape, and they're white dudes, so they got a bunch of preteen girls that are into them, and so that's the makeup of their fan base. And of course, the whole big thing with the Japanese forest where they're out there literally putting a dead body in there. Crystalia, are you familiar with Crystalia, the comedian?
Yeah.
Did you see like the whole interaction that they had?
No, but I heard a Rogan episode, or I watched a Rogan episode where he was kind of discussing it, but I'm not really sure what happened.
Yeah, basically, it was something super random. Like Logan Paul had posted a video, and he said, "You all need to watch this video." And so Crystalia, just being a comedian, just tweeted back, "No, you don't. Like, you don't need to see this video." And Logan Paul, I don't know if he's a fan of Crystalia or even heard of him, but he started like trying to like crack back jokes and saying like, "Oh yeah, that's really funny." He said something like, "That's a really funny joke for somebody whose career is dying." And Crystalia had the best comeback. He was like, "Well, at least I know when it dies, you'll take a picture and make a video of it." Like Jesus. Going to the Japanese forest thing. It was like,
Jesus Christ. It
had so many retweets. It was the best thing ever. So he's just kind of known for just being this all around douchebag that for some reason little kids love him. Yeah. And that's pretty much his fan base. It's under 18, 100% under 18. And then KSI had boxed some other dude. I'm not even familiar with it. Yeah.
Terrible.
And he won.
Yeah.
And then he challenged Logan Paul.
What kind of world? We'll move away from this and then we'll come back to it a little bit because I don't want to lose viewers.
Sure.
Unless we can get some Logan Paul fans and KSI fans in this chat and they can tell us what's up. But there's not much chance of that happening. We'll come back to that because I want to have a discussion around why the hell people are watching this. Raphael Shaper, did I miss this or did I miss you guys again? You didn't. We're just starting. We're only on about 10 minutes right now, so stick around.
Wait. It's
Raphael Schaefer, sorry,
Brazilian Schaefer.
Brazilian Schaefer, yeah. Khabib's second, in another bit of crazy news, the wacky world of MMA news. Khabib's second video mocking the homeless. It's going to be worse as Conor fight approaches. Conor is definitely going to have the public on his side, and I'm curious to see how Khabib handles being the heel. The heel is the bad guy in pro wrestling. I'll give you that one for free. I didn't see the second video. I seen the first video where he was doing the push-ups. I'm not sure, is that not the same video? Let us know, Auto Roadrunner. But I seen the first one, and yeah, it's honestly not the best look. It looks like they're laughing at the guy, and the guy doesn't like. Some people were arguing that it was Khabib joking around with this guy, which is fine, but it didn't look like the guy was in on the joke. It didn't look like he was happy to be being messed around with. So that's kind of the bad look. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm kind of not surprised. They probably come from, and for whatever reason, I just perceive this, and it could be totally wrong, but I would perceive that they probably don't have a whole lot of homeless people in their country. It's like basically people have referred to Russia as kind of a second-class country. It's where there's not a lot of money there, so you would expect a lot of broke people to be around, but I think there's just a little bit of that big brother always watching things, keeping people off the streets kind of thing. So I have no idea how they deal with that, but I have a feeling that they keep that stuff off the streets in one way or another. It's like it's just totalitarian in one way or another. But I'm not surprised, especially coming from the culture. That's probably one of the first homeless people he's ever seen in his life. And he probably thinks the first thing that most people think when they see that. And it's just like, oh, this guy was lazy and whatever. And honestly, you never know why somebody got in that situation. It could be that. But yeah, it's just a whole it's like I haven't even watched the video. Of like scrolled by it on Reddit. I've scrolled by it on Twitter. And I see like the guy doing push-ups. And I'm like, I don't even care to see it. And I just keep scrolling. So
yeah. It's not the best look. Do you think that Conor's going to be the fan favourite going into this one, even though he threw a dolly through the window, and a lot of people were very upset with that? Do you think he's going to be the good guy, or at least the majority of fans will be on his side?
That's tough. I feel like the hardcore fans are on Khabib's side.
Yeah. Because
Khabib has represented the fans more. He's been the guy out there fighting everyone, taking on all comers. I mean, he had 4 different opponents. like fall through, because at one point Pettis was even supposed to be at 223.
Yeah.
You know, going from Ferguson to Holloway to Pettis to Felder for a second, wasn't it?
I'm surprised Logan Paul didn't step in for that.
Yeah, apparently he would try, considering he called it yesterday. But and then they finally got to Iaquinta, so it was just kind of a crazy thing. So I think he represents the MMA fan base a whole lot more right now, and I think he has them on their side. Whereas it feels like, to a certain extent, he's always going to have his hardcore fans, but to a certain extent, for a lot of fans, I feel like they feel like Conor McGregor turned his back on them to a certain extent, to say, oh, I'm no longer, and that's kind of a silly thing. I mean, he doesn't owe fans anything, but it's like he went from being this guy fighting anyone, anywhere, anytime, to what looked like selecting fights, you know, that kind of thing, and, you know, staying out of competition or even ducking competition by a lot of people's estimation for not taking title fights. I don't necessarily agree with all those views, but, you know, on top of injuring fighters off of that card, which would have been some really great fights, like Michael Chiesa, for instance, being taken off the card, you know, it ruined a lot of stuff. So I think he got a lot of people against him. Yeah,
it's a weird one. Of course, Conor is always some kind of fan favorite because there's so many fans over here that will travel, and there's so many, I suppose, Americans who would identify at least some way as Irish. So he kind of has that big kind of cohort of people that look up to him in a way. So I wouldn't be surprised if he went in there with most of the fan fervor, but who knows? Rafael dos Schaefers.
I'm loving this.
Brilliant, yeah, it's awesome. Apparently, there's a second video. Auto Roadrunner said, nope, second video out today. Different guy. Interesting.
Wow.
We'll have to check that out.
Apparently
Hilton,
he didn't read that press.
Yeah, Jesus. Unless it was the same day and somehow it got leaked or something. But, or he doesn't give a fuck.
It's like Darren Till going out and saying, I'm not going to see my daughter for another year. How about that? You know, it's like
oh, God. USADA shouldn't be... this is Hilton Dotton Quesada. I messed this one up last week as well. USADA shouldn't be trusted to test the fighter that lives next to their offices. You can only pop if the UFC chooses to make you pop.
USADA should be.
That was a follow-on from another question by AQE Less. Do you trust McGregor?
That sounds like Icarus 100% there.
It does, actually.
Because, you know, they had the Russian, the FSB, or the former KGB building right behind the USADA building, or the WADA building. It was kind of like a joint office, and they would just switch out the A and B samples and then bring in fresh urine that was taken from other tests.
Conspiracy right now. I think USADA is in the chat.
Yeah, I don't know if that was what he was going for, but considering that's a very fresh subject on my mind, I definitely went there.
Do you trust McGregor being USADA tested in Ireland, where he is a hero? I never thought of that. I'm gonna say yes, but I suppose people could you know, sorry.
I don't know how that works. I know that USADA has, USADA, at first when you hear that, it's like, oh, well, it's United States guys doing the test, but not necessarily. They have people that are positioned all around the globe. So it's a part of USADA, and it's an extension of USADA, but they have people employed all over the world. So it could be an Irish guy taking a sample. I don't know.
Yeah. Dan from Oregon. PFL, Bellator, Ryzen, KSW, and now Cage Warriors are all doing or announced planned tourneys. Will the UFC ever jump back on board? We all want it. I'm not sure if we all want it, because I don't know if I want tournaments in the UFC necessarily. I don't mind them. I don't mind them, especially to start a division. Like, I loved that flyweight tournament that they did. I thought that was excellent, even with the overtime rounds, even though they messed it up. Well, the commission although the UFC, it was an Australian event, so the UFC would have hired that commission. Idiots. But I love that idea. But in general, tournaments, they were excellent back in the day. But I think tournaments lose their luster when you don't do it on a day, in the one day, which is pretty impossible to do these days in 2018, or you don't do them in fights really close to each other. Because I've said this a couple of times now, does the Bellator heavyweight tournament still feel like a tournament to you? Because to me it feels like just a lot of heavyweight fights with middleweights.
Yeah, it's very disjointed because, I mean, what would Pride do? They would host it over, what is it, just two events? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
They would have the opening round, and they would have the semifinals, and they would have the final. It would just work down to that.
Felt like a tournament.
What was it, 8 men? Yeah. So that second night especially, and it was close enough to the first event that it felt really, really jointed. But then again, I really like the idea of, say, Cormier, he retains his belt as he leaves the division. I like the idea of, a tournament or something like that.
Yeah.
So long as they can schedule it in a quick enough manner. But you know how these things go too, though. You could have a really clear set of people going into the semifinals, but half of them are injured. Yeah. And they can't even be scheduled. And that's the biggest issue with doing it in America, is a lot of times you'll get these 90-day suspensions or, whatever it might be. So you would have to wait at least 4 months to schedule again. You couldn't even do it in rapid succession if you wanted to. Sometimes 120 days. It really just depends on what it is. And I think that's a problem with it. But I love the concept. I'd be down for trying to do it again. And I love what they're doing in Bellator. I think it's brilliant. And I like the fact that you got all these potential matchups that are probably going to happen now with MVP finally fighting some world-class people, potentially all the way up to fighting Rory McDonald. That would be something if he could make it that far. Yeah. God, that would be so tough for him to make it past some of these ground guys. I don't necessarily see that happening, but it would be great. In my opinion, I do like them, but there is definitely the hurdle of timeliness that in America commissions really get in the way.
That's the big one. Just kind of based on that round tournaments and based on, I suppose, the way the UFC matchmake, in my opinion, and this is something I thought about the other day because I was thinking about all the tournaments that these promotions are doing. I'm not so sure that even for the people who say they wish this sport was treated more like a sport, so you had like structured rankings, you had essentially a sport structure, I don't think that works for MMA, and I don't even think it works for the really, really hardcore MMA fans, like really, because I think there has to be some kind of flexibility in this sport, because it is more of an entertainment product than a lot of other sports, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is more. Just because there's a massive difference between a big team sport and when you got this one-on-one spectacle of these guys fighting. Personality is so much more a part of it, just naturally. You can't help but identify when there's only one person walking in there, to face one other person, So on that end, I do think so. But I would love to see the rankings followed through on. And I think the times where you would, say Nate Diaz, when he stepped in, for RDA against Conor McGregor, that was great. That made a lot of sense. And any other way, I wouldn't have been behind it at the time, just because he was so far away from the title. I think he was number 6 or number 7 at the time. Yeah. So it wouldn't have made sense. So I really, really do like the rankings 99% of the time. I like, especially to your fighters, it sends a message to your fighters that says, okay, if you put in the work, you will get a title shot. And I think a lot of fighters are starting to become more disillusioned, because for all I've said about this being the money fight era not necessarily being true, I feel like that's always been the case. It was at least more consistent at one point in time. You know what I mean? It does feel like it has changed to, a degree or two in the past couple of years, and I would love to see it more follow that. And I think it's easier for fans to follow too, when you're like, okay, we know who's next, we know who we can get excited about. And for me, I just like that, because I guess more so than storylines, I always see storylines as a side benefit to like the reality that's going on. Yeah. You're seeing the two best people in their division fighting at any given time for a title. And I think that's the pinnacle of everything. That's what I'd rather see more than just about any other fight. There are very few exceptions where that's not the case. Yeah. And I think it makes those big fights bigger.
Yeah. I think they have to mix. That's for me. I think they really have to mix. I don't think they can have one or the other. And I lie on the more side of the sporting aspect, because I love the fights, but like Conor versus Khabib makes complete sense because for sporting reasons it makes sense. Conor was a champion at that weight, now Khabib is a champion, but also storyline reasons it makes a whole lot of sense. So I think they have to work, when they work together, I think that's when it works best. If you have one or the other and it's too lopsided, I think that's when it's a bit of a mess,
Somebody commented too much reverb. Can you clarify, are you hearing the room or are you actually hearing reverb? Because I don't have any sort of effects on it. Are you hearing it on your end?
Yeah. I'm not hearing it on my end, but it could be my setup, I guess. That's quite possible. I'm not an audiophile, so it could be my setup.
Yeah, you should see what my setup is. Like I'll basically take a tripod from a mic stand, and I'll take literally the tripod for the camera, and I'll stack them both up, and I'll take my comforter and I'll drape myself underneath it. And that's how I get so much more clean audio than what I have right now. Obviously, it wouldn't be practical to do that.
Yeah,
but
it'd be fucking funny though.
You're like,
it's all about the audio.
Luke Thomas. Luke Thomas used to have that weird, just black drape background. I don't understand why people prefer that.
Yeah.
Usually more detail in the background is actually better. It's like, if you have a beautiful mount behind you, use that. That's an amazing, like you can blur that out and it can look incredible, as opposed to what most people do is they'll just pick a white wall and they'll sit on it. Unfortunately, all I've got is screens to make my room look interesting.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot either. Yeah. I need to build like some kind of home studio type thing. That'd be awesome. So we have another one. Henry Ford is here. Darren Till and McGregor are going to get destroyed. You disagree with that one, at least on the McGregor side, right?
I do think Darren will. I guess I'm just shitting on Darren Till today.
Yeah, it's shitting on Darren Till day. Jesus.
I just don't think he can compete with the wrestling of Woodley, and considering Woodley has knockout power in his hands, I think he'll probably get. I think he can still win, and I like him more than Woodley. Obviously, his comments lately are just kind of shady, but I still like him more than Woodley at this point. So I would like to see him win. But I think that Woodley absolutely has the advantage.
Yeah. So. I haven't made a pick yet, but I will down the line. I think Woodley's the favourite going in for obvious reasons, but on both sides, I am probably like favourites wise, I would say Khabib and Woodley, but then I'm not sure exactly how I'm picking right now. Farrell Connolly, did you both lads see the Mike Perry and Darren Till spying video? Yes, that was absolutely hilarious. Did you see that?
No, for some reason I haven't watched it. It's come up on my feed and I just had zero interest in it. I also don't really like Mike Perry.
Come on, man.
I just don't like Mike Perry.
Why not? Face tattoo?
What was that? It just kind of comes off as too gangsterish for me. Like kind of he's just kind of a thug. I don't really like him. Yeah.
Interesting.
His personality just is kind of great.
I like him.
It's like,
I think he's funny.
It's like a put on accent is what it comes off like. He's trying to sound cool all the time. And that bothers me. It's like, what does your voice sound like when you're just like he's probably like one of those kind of guys where he's just like talking like super gangster, but then when he's like around his girlfriend, he's like, hi honey, hey, I'll be home in a minute. I really, really doubt that, but I'm just kind of like
just speculating
a little bit there. But I just hate it when people put on like a weird accent. It's like, that's not how you talk.
Yeah.
Like you're putting that on.
I'm not even Irish. This is not even my accent. I just do it because people like
it. You were a Conor McGregor fan. You were like, I want to say words without th. I just want to say it with a t.
Yeah, it's very easy to do. Very, very easy.
You predict these things.
Yeah, predict these things.
I'm unsubscribing if that dude doesn't like Mike. Platinum bless. Nope, I don't like him.
Hey,
unsubscribe. Sorry, buddy.
Stay subscribed to our channel.
You can unsubscribe from MMA Point. Go for it, dude.
I like Mike Perry. Okay. Someone said, "Are you in different countries?" That's probably why. I'll answer your next question if you can guess what countries we're both in. There we go. The room. It's super the room.
Easy.
Jason, it's your room.
Well, he's telling me to raise my mic because it's a hypercardioid pattern.
Jesus Christ, this is getting technical.
Mic. I really don't think that will solve it. I think I'll just be louder, just from experience using this mic. You can try to explain it a little bit more in detail. Maybe I'm just not understanding it, but I've certainly messed with this mic a good bit. And I could definitely tell you if I turn it up, it will only be louder.
Darren is going to...
Sorry.
Dan from Oregon. Darren is going to get UFC PI, the UFC PI course, the Performance Institute course. That seems to be a thing these days, doesn't it?
Well, I actually missed the comment. What was it?
Jesus Christ.
I think I just nodded because I was thinking about the mic stuff.
Oh, okay. The Mike Perry stuff or the microphone
he's going to get the UFC PI curse. Yeah. Like when...
Francis Ngannou.
The microphone mic. But yeah, like the Francis Ngannou thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
That's funny.
This question is excellent. Conan. This question is excellent, and I'm going to need a little bit of help because you've officially made the pick. Lads, please discuss how someone might pick Conor to win without being labelled as a casual fanboy. I need help. Let's go, Jason.
I think that's what I mean. I maybe there's just a bit of the contrarian in me, but if everyone is saying one thing, that doesn't mean it's right. You know what I mean? It's like there are all kinds of cliches out there that people say, like everything happens for a reason. Bullshit. No, it doesn't. Like random shit happens all the time. You know, like stuff doesn't happen for a reason. Or let's go with something a little bit more objective than that. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Nothing's coming to mind right now. This is something I've thought about before and nothing's coming out. But I mean, sometimes popular opinion is just wrong. I don't care if you're a hardcore fan or not. Like the fact is, hardcore fans, most of them don't fight. I don't fight. Almost none of them do. They just like Khabib more. That's the real thing. Like if you look at it, they are each other's worst enemy. Yeah. Like they're the exact opposite style, right up against each other. They're the most grating style for each other. So it's a matter of one game winning out. It literally is as simple as that. This is old school UFC is basically what we're looking at. They have competent enough skills to defend themselves for a little bit, but if they stay in each other's game too long, they're both going to lose. Or, you know, not both are going to lose, but you know what I mean? One of them's going to lose if they stay in the other's game too long. Yeah. So it's as simple as that. It really is. Like, either person can win. Yeah,
I completely agree. There's a few reasons. Like, if you don't think Khabib is vulnerable to Conor striking, I think you're silly. Because everybody is. Khabib Nurmagomedov isn't a striker. And every time Khabib's coach goes on any kind of show, he says, Khabib is not striking with this guy. Khabib is going for takedowns. Conor historically has had very, very, very good takedown defense. And for anyone who says that he hasn't watched Conor fight, the only fight where he got taken down kind of at will was Chad Mendes. And I suppose you can argue that he's the only real, you know, elite wrestler that he fought. So there is that, but that also was how many fights ago?
UFC 189. So
yeah, 6 fights ago, 3 years ago. Something like that.
If you watch the documentary, that notorious documentary that came out, like that injury, he wasn't lying about that injury. That's very real. Yeah, they show him rehabbing it and just deciding to fight anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that was not the typical Conor at all.
Yeah, exactly. And it looked like he was going for the finish really early, which Conor does do, but he wasn't as slick about it. He was kind of trying to chase the finish. So if Conor lands, seriously, if Khabib goes for a couple of takedowns, can't get it, and Conor's striking right from the get-go, that's the one, I suppose, really, really good thing about how Conor fights is that he gets settled so quick. We've seen it in so many fights. We've seen it in the Jose Aldo fight. We've seen it in the Eddie Alvarez fight, the Poirier fight. He gets settled so quick against really good strikers. And if he's coming against a guy who maybe misses a couple of takedowns and then they start second-guess themselves, because Khabib, no matter what you say, Khabib is an absolute animal, and as I said, I'd put him as the favourite. But he is a human being. If he starts missing takedowns and his coach has been telling him all through camp, we're not going to strike with this guy, and he finds himself striking with him, he's going to start reaching for takedowns. He's going to start looking for these kind of un-Khabib-like takedowns. Of course he has a shot.
Yeah, and when you compare him with the wrestlers that McGregor has fought, they were both better strikers than Khabib. Eddie Alvarez, I've seen him, put people down that way. Like the way that he beat Gaethje, you know what I mean? He was mixing it up, throwing body blows, going all over the place. He's an objectively better boxer, and so is Chad Mendes. Chad Mendes has multiple KOs on his record, and Conor ate all of those. And he took some big punches. Obviously, we'd be looking. It probably would play out a lot different, and obviously would. Like maybe his power would be a little bit more there if he had more time, but still. You're talking about guys that had better ways to set up takedowns. Yeah. And in Eddie's case, he couldn't do it.
Yeah. And it's also important to say that Conor and Khabib are similar in the sense that they beat really good guys with their style in similar ways, like unbelievably dominant ways. Jose Aldo, completely dominant. And some people can say it was lucky. It wasn't lucky. He set up that punch. It was a beautiful check hook. The Eddie Alvarez fight, we've seen Eddie Alvarez been in so many wars, and in that fight, it just looked easy. I'm not saying it was easy, but it looked easy. It looked like what Khabib does do to a lot of fighters. What Khabib takes them down and just absolutely dominates them. It's a similar way, but obviously they fight in a different style. But they're both so dominating. That's what makes this fight really, really good.
Yeah, it's always better if you don't like someone to overestimate their skills rather than to underestimate them. Because imagine if you're Khabib and you hate Conor McGregor and you underestimate that left hand, you're probably going to get put to sleep with it. Yeah. You better overestimate it and be extremely, extremely ready by the time it comes. And obviously, as a fan, none of you are fighting Conor McGregor. But when it comes down to it, no one ever gains anything from underestimating someone. You know what I mean? It's always better to over-exaggerate, if anything.
Plan for the worst.
It's like, if no, I don't want to get into that. I was about to say something political. I'm just going to back off that. But it's like, I guess in general arguments sake, you give the person that you're arguing with the benefit of the doubt, and you assume they have a better argument than they do. Because then you understand their argument more and you're able to articulate your argument better. That's like philosophy debating 101 type kind of thing. So it's like, that's the way that you do things. You never get anything from underestimating things. You only get blindsided that way. Sometimes you're right, but that's rare. It just is. Yeah. Especially at the highest level. We're talking about professionals here.
Exactly. Rafael dos Schaefer. Robert, deep down, Conor's is going to surprise everyone and put on a clinic. Keep catching Khabib on the way in and wall at distance and put him away in one of the first three. Maybe. I'm not I'm on the if I had this pick right now, as I said, I'd pick Khabib, but I'm not on the oh my god, there's no chance for Conor in this one. Not even in the slightest. So maybe. Harry Dunn, no belts on the line. If Darren Till and Colby Covington were on the same card, both fighting any top 10 welterweight each, who would be the main event? Darren Till.
No belts on the line if Darren Till. Sorry, I was scrolling down. I realized I hadn't scrolled down in a while. If Darren Till and Colby were on the same card, both fighting at, who would be the main event? Yeah,
Darren Till right now for sure. Unless the Donald Trump effect has fully come into effect.
I think it depends on what soil you're on. That there would be a bit of this. You'd be a madman to go to England and not have Darren Till in the main event, because that guy's just going to get a louder pop than anyone out there. If you're in America, probably go with Colby. You know what I mean? You could even, say generally. But if you're over there, it's almost like people are going to start walking out. It's like you don't want to try to go on after that.
Yeah. Mike Perry is a G. That was from Moyes Audio. He is a G.
Word.
Come on.
Word up.
Dan from Oregon. 300k PPV pay-per-view for 227. UFC 227 ain't bad.
Oh, did that just come back?
I guess. I will Google it. UFC 227.
That's shockingly good if you compare it to some of these other cards throughout the year. Was it 225? Did 250k?
Yeah. Yeah, so Dillashaw versus Garbrandt 2 in a pretty heated rivalry, but lower weight guys, which generally it's not a rule, but it's generally a trend. They don't do that well. So yeah, it's not too bad. You know, the UFC have done huge pay-per-views in the past, and I'm sure they want to get back to that. But I suppose it's not the worst considering what we have.
Yeah, that's really solid. Those are this year, past year and a half. Those are above average. You know, that's great.
Harry Dunn, Ireland and Canada. Oh.
What about it?
Man, you need to get sleep. We asked where we were from, and I said guess. He said Ireland and Canada.
No. No, I'm too outspoken and too obnoxious to be a Canadian.
Yeah, not nice enough.
Obviously a stupid American, 100%.
Rafael Dos Schaefer, fuck the mic, just leave it as it is, the audio ain't bad. Rafael Schaefer again. Just take Henry versus DJ from just a few days ago. I guess that was a comment on something else.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But again, he said, although this is a bit of a stupid comment to make, because I actually thought DJ won.
A lot of people thought that.
Yeah. Me too. I thought
it was just very, very close.
Yeah, I thought he won.
A lot of people. Yeah, I thought I scored it for Cejudo. Okay. I think the way that the rules are, typically the person that controls most of the round on the ground, even if you're not hurting them, it's still octagon control. And the concept is, and what I really appreciated, so Luke Thomas had said something as a reply to somebody on Twitter. It was basically to the extent of, well, what you're doing is you're literally holding someone against their will for that long. And a lot of damage isn't necessarily happening, but you're actually controlling another human being. So I think that's worth something. And if there's nothing else significant in the round that happened, like I'm trying to remember which ones it was. I want to say it was the second, fourth, and fifth that Cejudo had some really good ground control. There wasn't anything else that was significant else in that round. So it's like, what else do you score?
Yeah.
And there definitely weren't any 10-8 rounds. So that was kind of my rationale in it. But it was also so close that if it went the other way, I wouldn't be mad. It's like, sometimes I think people get so invested in whatever fighter it is that none of you guys are saying it's a robbery, but a lot of people were saying it was a robbery. And the same thing has happened for Jones, Gustafsson. Actually, you could argue that he didn't win any of those rounds when you look at the fight matrix numbers. He landed hardly any punches in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Like, I'm serious. Go look it up. Like, they're round by round statistics. I think there was just a lot of Joe Rogan and Goldberg commenting on how crazy it was that he was taking him down and landing on him more than anybody else had, and not commenting on what was going down from the Jones end of things. But I mean, all that aside, close matches happen all the time. It doesn't mean it's a robbery. It just means that you probably watched your guy a little bit more and you probably paid attention to the hits and not the misses. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As I said at the start of this, give this a like and a subscribe and get people in here.
Don't do it.
Share it on Twitter. Tell them that Jason's on no sleep and he's missing questions left, right, center in here. It's great.
Tell him to unsubscribe.
Don't tell
via my comments of Mike Perry, because he's a G.
Black Guys Production. Sup, boys? Did you see that video of Cody Garbrandt in the Tough House? It was like a collection. It was a collection of him drunk, saying something like drinks with the boys, and I was like, oh my god, unbelievable stuff that was.
Yeah, that was the meme from the show.
Was
it? Yeah. I guess it was kind of a self-created meme. I think it was what he was going.
It's hilarious. Dan from Oregon. I love the Bellator welterweight Grand Prix. Bracket stickers on one side and grapplers and Rory on the other side. Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of this bracket. Again, I hope that they have these a bit condensed, the fights condensed, as in try to get them all within the space of 2 months if you can, or something like that. But yeah, the bracket is excellent and I can't wait for this tournament.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the thing, kind of like what you and I were talking about a little bit earlier. It's like, what does the follow through on this look like as far as the schedules, how many people drop out of their fights? etc. So as long as they can stick to a relatively quick schedule and it doesn't drag out like this heavyweight tournament has, then I think we've got a really, really great. I mean, I'm still excited about it just because of the matchups that are happening. I'm really excited for that MVP Paul Daly fight. It's just bound to finally happening. So really excited about all that stuff.
Do you have a winner? Is it Rory McDonald? Are you going with the
100% Rory? Because Rory beat Woodley. He just had his way with him in that fight. He controlled him. You know what I mean? So I think Rory arguably is the best welterweight in the world right now. You could definitely make a case for that. And so I can't pick against that. And even though he had a really tough time in his last fight, I think he's really got a chance to come out on top here. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm picking him as well. More questions. Get the questions in, lads, and we'll try answer them. If Tony would have beat,
really good interaction this week, by the way.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah, it's excellent. If Tony would have beat Khabib, do you think Conor would have fought him? Dangerous fight for a much smaller reward. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know if that fight would have happened. I'm not sure if Tony versus McGregor is the big marquee fight that McGregor wanted coming back. I think Khabib fills a few spots for McGregor in terms of, like, if he had like a few check boxes. I think Khabib fills the check box of a big fight, check. A fight that kind of puts him back in the good graces of a lot of fans who thought he was avoiding a lot of people. That's another check box. And I suppose the title, the title is there as well. I know that would be there for Tony, but I'm not so sure that Ferguson would really check off all those boxes for McGregor.
Yeah, the big thing was the confrontation between Khabib and Artem. That was the big thing that really sent it over the edge. But none of this probably would have happened if Ferguson was in there. I can't remember the circumstances, but I feel like things would have been entirely different if Ferguson was still in the fight. I think you could have arguably been in the exact same situation with either man, because if you really think about it, before 223, what did these two have? At 205, Khabib calling him a chicken. I don't know if that's the best fight.
It's better than a chicken McNugget.
Oh God!
Remember, McNuggets. He called them McNuggets. I can't get over the fact that he called them McNuggets.
It's so not creative. It's so stupid.
If you I don't like bullying, but if you were a kid and you called someone, and you were in school and you called someone McNuggets, you would be bullied for the rest of your school career.
Yes and no. If you're gonna, it's like if you're doing that to a bully, if Conor McGregor then beats your ass, and it's like, nobody call me that anymore. They would call you behind your door, behind closed doors maybe, but they wouldn't say it to your face.
It's terrible.
I just always thought it was such a shitty joke, though. It's like the most obvious thing. It's like,
that's what I mean.
I might have said this before, but it would literally be like somebody would be like, "Oh, BJ Penn, Sylvania felt pen." It's the lamest joke ever. It's like, it's not creative. It's not even a good pun. It's just like, oh, McNuggets. Like, how many times have people thought of that before, or even said that before, and you're just like, oh, good one. It's like when people are like, oh, Lucky Charms, Conor McGregor. It's who said that to him? It was Jeremy Stevens. Yeah. After he did the whole who the fuck is that guy? It's like, dude, it's so goddamn uncreative. It's like it's I don't know. I'm not saying I'm the funniest guy and I'm the most clever, most wittiest guy, but I definitely know really uncreative, unthoughtful, definitely not witty. That's annoying to me. It's like the fact that he keeps thinking it's good, and the fact that people do think it's like, are you guys all idiots? What the fuck? How do you think that's funny?
Has his friends or his wife not come over to him and said, Tony, sit down for a minute. You're embarrassing yourself. Stop saying McNuggets. It's not funny. It's not creative. It's not clever. It's really bad. It's a terrible insult. It doesn't even make any sense.
It's just dumb. So dumb.
Moyes Audio. Anyone will attack Tony's left leg in the future. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
He needs to look out for that. Harry Dunn. Till versus Wonderboy. Which winner has the better storyline with Covington? And could you see the UFC ever doing Till Covington in Brazil? I'll let you take that one first.
100% Woodley. They hate each other. You know, the conspiracy side of things is they both set this up considering they're from the same camp. And even Woodley said that they used to kind of, talk to each other about promoting themselves, and that Colby actually used to go to Woodley for advice. He said that on the MMA Hour the week after 225. So the conspiracy side could be true, but I'm really starting to sense some real animosity there. And I mean, when you think of it, I mean, and I really don't want to get political here, but you do have to point out the fact that they have crossed that line already with the MAGA stuff with Colby, and a lot of people kind of like push Woodley over to the SJW side of things because he has called people racist and stuff like that in the past. So there's like a deep-seated element here that is really, really like, I hate it when politics are brought into like sports and stuff like that, but it's on the table. They brought it in and they've made it a focal point. Like they've made it a point. I mean, Colby's outright called him a race baiter. So, I mean, there's some like really, really, really deep seated stuff that, it's kind of getting ugly, but they clearly hate each other way more. I mean, you saw at the press conference, there was a point where they were both complimenting each other, Till and Woodley, where they're like, oh yeah, finally someone saying he's a worthy opponent and he's not afraid of me.
That's the thing about Darren Till though. And again, I said it this week, is that I feel a lot of people have a different impression to Darren Till than what he really is. Like, when's the last time Darren Till really was insulting to somebody? Like, he'll get into a bit of...
Probably the last time he saw his daughter.
Oh.
Sorry.
That was... oh, Jesus Christ.
It's too easy.
That was dark.
Too easy.
I'll continue. But no, really, in terms of fight talk with other fighters, when's the last time that he really kind of trash talks somebody? He comes out and he says, I'm going to beat you, I'm going to knock you out. But that's just, that's standard. That's not really insulting. He's generally really respectful to the people he fights. Like with Wonderboy, he was super respectful in the cage. Some would say too much in the cage, and outside the cage. He said he's one of the best strikers. I can't wait for this challenge. I'm going to knock him out. I'm a fighter. I'm going to knock him out. But I think a lot of people think he's like this Conor McGregor guy who's like, who the fuck is this guy? And, very cocky. Even though Conor at times can be respectful, especially after the fight. But before the fight, it's generally mental warfare. But I don't really see that with Darren Till that much. He'll just say, I'm going to knock you out,
Yeah, like, actually, contrary to popular belief, I think Conor's doing real shit talk.
Yeah.
Like, he's actually trying to get in your head. He's not doing it for the cameras. I mean, there is a bit of knowing there's an audience there, and if you say, who the fuck is that guy, knowing everyone is going to laugh at you in an auditorium and the millions of people watching at home and after the fact. So, I mean, there definitely is something to be said for that, but I think it's real shit talk when you're really trying to get in somebody's head. So, and I think Darren Till is a little bit more on that aspect too, where he's, like when he got on the mic at Liverpool and he was like, nobody can come in here and beat me. Like he was speaking like what he was really thinking there. And I think when he talks shit, it tends to be really genuine. And he can be outspoken, but I think that's just being outspoken. I don't think it's for the cameras as much as everybody thinks. Like, I think people like to feel like they're special and they like to feel like things are being done for their sake. And like I said, there are some times where, making fun of somebody in front of a crowd is legitimately embarrassing. That's different from, I don't know, Kevin Lee getting up there and wearing like a really obviously derivative Conor McGregor shirt and then punching Chiesa. It was just very, very derivative, and clearly he almost seems kind of nervous when he does it. You see the same thing with Colby. I mean, that's the same thing I make about Colby. Like, I mean, I don't feel like anything he's doing is legitimate, and I think that's the difference between a Till and a Conor versus a Colby or a Kevin Lee. I put Colby and Kevin Lee in the same category. They're putting on a show and they're trying to do what they think will get them tickets. And I think, more people have gotten on board lately, but I still think the vast majority of people don't buy Colby's stick. Yeah. There's a lot of trolls out there that love jumping on that bandwagon and, kind of messing with people on it, but I don't believe them. And trolls, like, if you know somebody's trolling, then the troll doesn't really have any effect, does it?
No. I'd like to hear other people's opinion on what they think of that in the comments as well. Harry Dunn did say, Till did tell a journalist to fuck you. That was in jest, to be fair. That's something that I would do, and I'm a really nice guy. It's a very British or Irish thing to do with, like, this kind of side of the pond. Just like, fuck you, mate. It's kind of, it's more of a loving thing. I'm sure Tom says that to you all the time, does he?
Hey, fuck you, Jason. What up, man? Yeah, I mean, there is that, like, Joe Rogan kind of talked about that, like, because there's again, more politics tend to want to, like, seep in, but sometimes people take insults very, very literally, especially in, like, certain aspects of the media. And sometimes it's like, okay, pull back. Did they really mean that, or were they trying to say it in jest or something like that? And Joe Rogan's example was you're going and talking to your friend. You're like, what's up, bitch? You're not really saying, like, what's up, bitch? It's not like you're literally in a stare down and calling someone a bitch. Like, it seemed very much the same thing with Darren Till. Yeah, it's like, he's having a bit of fun. And there might even be some serious behind it, but he's definitely being humorous.
Exactly. He's not, Raphael Schaefer, have you watched the piece John Gooden driving around Liverpool with Darren Till and talking about his upbringing? It's definitely worth a watch. It's a great piece. I actually haven't watched the full thing yet. I did see a clip while they were filming it. That's the trailer, the teaser thing. Have you watched it?
I have not seen it. I feel like you guys brought it up on the podcast. I might have missed. Yeah. But that was the first I'd heard of it, and I listened to that this day. So I love John Gooden, actually. I'm a big fan of his. Excellent. He was on our podcast. He was the first guest, actually. Nice. Crazily enough. But,
we had him on as well at one point. Cool guy.
Yeah, he's a really great guy. And so I'm a huge fan of anything that he does. And I like Darren Till a lot, so I'm automatically on board. Yeah. So I just need to find the video and watch it.
Yeah. Another thing we wanted to touch on before we go too far and we can't get back to it was extreme weight cutting in MMA. This is something that you had your opinion on. There was an article released on bloodyelbow.com. I'm sure it was released in other places, and I've probably lost it, but I'm going to go try find it while I explain. So the California State Athletic Commission released the fight day weigh-ins or weigh-in weights for all the fighters that competed at UFC 227, and some of the weigh-ins was just insane. So there was a couple of fighters there's one fighter who was 2 weight classes above his own weight class on fight day. So he weighed in at 125 pounds or 126 pounds. Wow. And on fight day he was 146 pounds, which is 2 weight classes up. That's insane. Jesus. I'm going to get the article up, but I suppose your take on this crazy extreme weight cutting that's going on in MMA at the moment, and probably since the dawn of MMA time, I guess.
Yeah, what's crazy is, and I'm not 100% certain on this, but I believe, especially in instances like that, CSAC and Andy Foster recommend that they go up another weight class. And what sucks about that is they have zero power. They're one commission in one state. Yeah. That guy might not fight for another 4 or 5 months. Whoever it was that weighed in super Perez. High. Oh, Alex Perez. He had a fantastic performance. Yep. He knocked out Mighty Mouse's next opponent. Works. Yeah, it really, really does.
Yeah, he ruined the super fight.
It ruined the super fight with Shorty Torres and DJ.
Although DJ lost as well, so...
Yeah, so they got ruined on both sides. Obviously joking about that, but it was just one of those kind of things where if he's not going to fight for another 4 or 5 months and he's going to fight somewhere else, it's easy to just be like, well, I'm not fighting in California, so I don't know how much power. I doubt it has any power in any other real jurisdiction. So Nevada, for instance, would be like, oh, they recommended this, but we don't have that system in place. So we can't legally enforce it, would be my understanding. So it's a bit of a shame. Like, and it's the thing that sucks in America about our state structure when it comes to athletics. Like, I don't see the need for it whatsoever. It's like, just have some independent body or something like that. We don't need every single one of these bankrupt states, frankly, that don't have any cash to fund this stuff. It's like, I talked to some commissioners around here that just kind of told me most of these places are bankrupt. And what we really need is a centralized authority on all this, to where it's like, oh, you just had a sanction put on you saying that you need to go up a weight class. Worthless anywhere else they go. So it's a bit of a interesting thing. So actually, someone is commenting 1 FC weight cutting rules would be nice. So this is one of the things I was wanting to know. Does anybody know what the argument against the hydration process is? They do hydration tests. So, they can clearly tell you've been weight cutting, and they just don't allow it by, measuring how much water you literally have in your body. So does anybody even know of a downside to that and why that hasn't been talked about? Because that's something I'm wanting to do a video about. Yeah. And I haven't really heard much about that. Yeah,
I'm not sure. To be honest, I don't know. I really don't know. Like my argument to weight cutting and to having some kind of weight cutting program in the UFC is that if they can have an advanced doping or anti-doping policy and program, why can't they have some kind of advanced weight cutting policy program? It seems like a way more pressing issue for me anyway, and I know a lot of people have different opinions about weight cutting and about doping, but to me weight cutting is way more important. Fix that issue first.
The best answer I've heard is the problems it would create for the UFC. Sure. So like virtually all your champions would end up going up a weight class or something of that nature. Yeah.
Then they become that champion. Just a few of the weights. Every fighter aside from Danielle Taylor, Kevin Holland and Cody Garbrandt was up at least one weight class. So they were up one weight class. Some of the ones that kind of stick out, of course, was Alex Perez, as I said, 146 pounds, weighed in at 126 pounds. Who else? Who was up really high? Ho Kang was 154 pounds and weighed in at 136 pounds. So again, another two weight class jump. Who else went up? Brett Johns Brett Johns, he did miss weight, but he weighed in at 158 pounds or weighed in 100. He didn't miss weight. Sorry, my bad. I was looking at the 158 pounds. So he weighed in at 136 pounds, made weight, and it was 158 pounds. Man.
Well, Javier Schaefer, I can't get rid of the age. He said, fun fact, all the fighters actually followed the regulations and fought inside the 10% plus weight limit lost. But Zhang, who fought Danielle Taylor, still at weight advantage. So what is it, 30%, 30 days out, and then it's 10% the week of? Is that what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, something like that.
I'm trying to jog my memory on that. So you're saying they followed it up to that, but there are no, like they could go up 22 pounds and that's fine? I'm curious if Schaefer's got some of that information. Would be really illuminating to kind of discuss that further, but very interesting.
Can anything be done? Is a 1FC type program where they're testing the hydration, or what? I suppose that's the only real answer, isn't it, to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's very smart, it's very intelligent, because then it says, hey, we can tell you've been weight cutting and we just made that illegal, and we can prove it by testing how much water is in your body. Like it shuts it down entirely. And what I'm trying to figure out is, why aren't we talking about it more here? Why does this feel like such a distant, far away concept? And why is Andy Foster one of the, the guy who's the commissioner, head of it for CSAC? Why would he propose that, knowing that hydration is out there? And what I'm really trying to figure out is why would he argue against that? The only thing I can think of is that the UFC would fight against it because they don't want to move up all their weight classes and totally shuffle their divisions. That's the only thing I can think of. That's the only thing that occurs to me. Yeah,
it's weird. The California State Athletic Commission did suggest that Alex Perez and Brett Johns should be fighting at heavier weights. So again, as you said, it's not going to be enforced anywhere, or at least we don't believe it'll be enforced anywhere but California. But you know, hopefully they can work together, because it is the fear that we have to wait for somebody to, like did, I think it was in the chat there, I'm off the chat, but somebody said that a Chinese fighter died.
Yeah,
it's got to be something like that really pushes the UFC to do something about it. I really do think it's going to be that, unless some miracle they make a decision. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't come down to that, but it seems like it might be.
Yeah,
it's scary stuff.
The regulation is you can only gain 10% of your body weight on weigh-ins. They weigh you the night of the fight. Yeah, so that's what we were talking about, but clearly that's way more than 10%, if that's accurate. If somebody's weighing 22 pounds over what their weight class is, that's 20% if they're 125, or they're somewhere around 15 to 16%. So that's I guess what's kind of confusing me, is because that doesn't add up. It's way more than 10% for somebody to go from 125 to 146.
I'm kind of confused about this, because is this enforced for MMA, or is this not the enforcement that came into play in boxing recently, the last few days?
For CSAC, that's 100% what's being enforced, because that 10% number, and I believe it was 30%, 30 days out, but I'm a little bit confused. Or are you saying he's reading the boxing results on accident? I don't know.
Okay, so here in the Bloody Elbow article, and for the first time they've released those day of weights to the public, showing that all but 6 fighters failed to hit that 10% mark. So all but 6 failed to make that 10% mark. So I'll just read it out here, just so everybody's not confused. The process includes measuring athletes' fight night numbers, post rehydration, under the stipulation that athletes would not be more than 10% above their contracted weight in the cage. So I guess they don't enforce it, or they're not going to pull fights because of it, but it's just something they're, I guess, testing, because a lot of people missed.
Must be.
Yeah,
that would be almost every fight.
Man,
you said all but 6 fighters?
All but 6 fighters. Somebody was 16.3% above, which was Alex Perez. So you're almost double that. Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Quick few, I suppose, questions if you want to ask them in the chat, and a few more things I just want to touch on really quickly before we let you go. It looks like Greg Hardy is making waves in MMA right now.
Yeah.
He got another quick finish on the Contender Series. The UFC signed him up to some kind of developmental deal. Are you in the mindset, and I think we spoke about this before, but you in the mindset now of just, he has a past, but, we have to let him continue with his life, and let's go and let's see what he can do in the UFC?
I thought about this because it's kind of messed up, but it's kind of similar to the Nick Newell situation. Like we were talking about.
I was not expecting that.
Because it's kind of like if Nick Newell were to make it onto a big card and get knocked out. And trust me, I made an entire video on this, and I'm very familiar with the other side of the arguments.
Great work.
Thank you. But I realize people are saying that doesn't still exist, but remember, only 2 years removed from New York, like literally people in the legislature saying, oh, it's gay porn with a different ending. Mixed martial arts are not the arts. People saying it's legalized, barbaric cage fighting. This is what people were saying in New York when it happened. So that whole thing, I think there was a legitimate concern, especially on the part of the UFC, which I think was reasonable. And it's the same reason they put him on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, because it was kind of this buffer zone. It's like, well, if he doesn't make it through and if he loses brutally, he loses on a very small stage in comparison to any of their televised cards or their pay-per-view cards.
Yeah.
So Greg Hardy, I actually see in kind of a similar light. I see them putting him through the fire, and they're like, okay, if you make it through all these tests, you've earned your way, and we can no longer afford to ignore you. You're just that good of a talent. And, I was always on Nick Newell's side, I want to say that. And so I don't want to, to kind of backtrack. I don't want to make it sound like I was against him. I just thought concern was reasonable, entirely reasonable. And with Greg Hardy, I think it's that same approach. It's like, all right, let's cautiously give him a chance, see how he makes it through these tests. If he doesn't make it through, then we don't even have to deal with that potential PR nightmare. If he does make it through, then all of a sudden, we've got this guy who's at least earned his place, and you can make all those arguments. So the way I personally feel about it, though, is, if he is that good, there's a certain extent where you become undeniable. If he does something again, though, I mean, it's like he's beyond reproach at that point. Like, you are gone. You are absolutely gone.
Yeah. It's a division that the UFC, always struggle with, heavyweight. And, Daniel Cormier doesn't have long left. Cain Velasquez, there was some talk that he might be returning soon. His coach said that he hopes that he'll come back soon, which is awesome. But, there's not a lot of heavyweights there. And if you have a guy like Greg Hardy who, has a past, but he seems to be a fairly good talent, we need to see the rest of his game. But yeah, it's a hard one to just ignore, isn't it? It's a hard one to ignore.
Yeah, I mean, the way that guy is winning is just insane. The 17-second KO.
Yeah.
The guy's just clearly very, very naturally gifted. I mean, he's a world-class athlete.
Do you know he's still playing football?
He's playing arena football, right?
I don't know, but I was just saying it today. He's still playing some kind of football. What is arena football?
Arena football. Arena football is like a B league, right. Maybe even C league. So it's just kind of this. It's a very niche thing you don't hear about at all. I've never heard about friends going to watch an indoor arena football game. Yeah. I've never heard about it, but it's a thing, and evidently has enough success to keep going and paying athletes to do it. So it's low press. And the press pretty much stay out of it, which is good for those leagues because they get to have, obviously, an NFL-level player tearing it up in their little leagues.
I know you were not a big football fan, and you say you get a bit of stick for that, but was he was he actually a really good player, Greg Hardy?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. No clue.
You never even heard of...
Honestly, I hadn't heard of him.
Oh,
yeah.
Way out.
I don't watch team sports. I'm a weirdo.
Here's one of the toughest questions you might have because it's right off the top of your head and it's very difficult to answer. But we'll try. If you could stack the Conor versus Khabib card with any fights of your choice, who would get the 4 slots on the card, excluding obviously the main event?
If you could, you would be picking everything.
Yeah. Man,
I would move that Poirier fight and that Nate Diaz fight right underneath
there you
that.
Go. Co-main event. Yeah. That's it. Beautiful.
Yeah. And then John Jones, DC. I would love to see that. Obviously, we don't even have a clue what's going on with Jones yet. It's amazing how long the deliberation process has been on this. Because what was it, February? Yeah, it was February that the California State Athletic Commission passed down their judgment on it.
Yeah.
And they've actually deferred to USADA. So it's insane. But that would be the fight to put underneath it if you're really trying to stack it. And then, of course, I'd want my boy Cruz on there up against TJ Dillashaw, one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah.
And then Poirier, Nate Diaz, I guess, would feel disrespected and not want to fight on that card either because he'd be like the top of the card instead of the bottom of it. Yeah.
Then I don't know. Then Marlon Moraes, Assunção to get that title fight contender in there. And then maybe if Ortega, if Max Holloway's going to be out for a while, get Ortega on the card, stick him in there in a rematch against Moicano. Let's do it. Interim title.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Couple more questions and then we're going to leg it because I think Jason needs some sleep. He's been up all night editing a video that just went out. And to be honest, I had a quick look at your video. Didn't obviously watch it, but I was looking at the comments and they look good. There's no real dissent over your picks for the best fighters of all time. There's a few questions.
Ooh, Yeah, it's definitely a high dislike ratio in comparison to normal. Usually we're in like a 5% to 10%, and we're sitting somewhere around 20%, which is what I expected. If you look at the comments, though, they're through the roof. So, I mean, the interaction's high.
That's what matters. Interaction, and apparently a down vote or like a down like thing or an up like thing is the same in terms of interaction.
Watch time is more important than anything. Yeah. Because it means you're staying on YouTube, and that means those ads are going to be watched. Yeah. So, yeah, you're right.
Let's get a couple. Arena football is behind even CFL, which I guess is the Canadian Football League, which I guess is fairly small. Andrew Gamble, he was a very good DE and super athletic DE. I'm going to say defensive end. Did I get it? I watched a little bit of football. Could have been an all-pro had he not hit women. Why
are we laughing?
I don't know. It was just seemed abrupt. Don't hit women, of course.
Reddit with comedic timing. How dare you?
Charles and Gwen. GSP versus Khabib. I guess he wants a prediction.
By the way, that's Wen is how that's pronounced.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Like it's like
Charles Wen.
Ben Wen.
Yeah. It took me the longest time to catch that.
I wouldn't mind if it was Ben Wen, as in the fighter, I would have got it. But because you tripped me up with it.
It doesn't rhyme.
No, it doesn't rhyme. Doesn't work.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Who's your pick? GSP. Khabib.
GSP versus Khabib. GSP. I think he's bigger, stronger. We have weight classes for a reason, and I think that would. I mean, GSP is also more experienced, and he has a much more well-rounded game. So you would see either they'd cancel each other out, and he would beat him up on the feet. He'd beat up Khabib on the feet, or it would go to the ground, and GSP would be the one on top. I just think GSP is the much bigger man, much stronger man, and he's beaten way better people than Khabib. You can't even compare. At this point, 26-0, great. But if you were to compare the components, it's not the same at all. So GSP 100%, yeah. Yeah,
I'd probably lean towards GSP, maybe. But, I don't know. Yeah, GSP. More talk about how good Greg Hardy was at football. Yeah, he had 15 sacks for 1 or 2 seasons. Interesting. He was good. Yeah, so apparently he was a good footballer. Good footy player.
Foosball.
Yeah.
Sub the devil.
Andrew Gamble, don't say that in front of Brendan Dorman. We both have a bromance of Khabib. Yeah, Brendan Dorman loves Khabib quite a bit, and although Brendan Dorman's a big fan of GSP as well. That'd be an interesting question to ask him.
Good question, yeah.
He might have like an existential crisis in his own head and just blow up. That'd be quite funny. We'll take one more question, the first one that comes in, and then we're out of here. But before we go check out Jason's new video, the controversial one, the top 10 MMA fighters of all time, the correct list, the ultimate correct list. I'm actually really interested in seeing it.
I try to preface that shit as much as possible, but
give us a teaser. Give us number 10. Do you know it off the top of your head? Teaser for number 10
is BJ Penn.
Nice. Yeah. He deserves to be top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
Good point, Rob. I guess that's to Brendan Dorman. If a question doesn't come in the next 5 seconds, we're gonna run. But yeah, subscribe to their channel, subscribe to this channel, upvote this. Check us out on. Check out my last one. Check out my eye poke question. What was that? I didn't see that.
He was talking about who had a detached retina. Who was it? That's what it was about.
It wasn't Bisbing, was it? Did he have a detached retina?
Matt Sales suffered a torn retina as a result of the multiple eye pokes and will need laser surgery. He lost the decision. No point was taken during the fight. Thoughts? Yeah, I think the rule is supposed to be one warning and the next one, boom, you got a point taken away, and that it wasn't followed, which is unfortunate because those are the new unified rules. And that's how I think you should handle that stuff. It's like for really fight debilitating stuff, like you land a punch after the bell, point. I don't care if it was an accident. It's your fault. When that bell sounds, you're not supposed to be swinging at somebody. You're not supposed to be eye poking somebody. you're not supposed to be grabbing the fence, all these different things. So
yeah. Daniel Mulvahedi, a guy who we have on the show a lot, is a great referee over here in Europe, and he has done the UFC once. But he made a great call in a Bama fight where the fighter was basically, he kept reaching his fingers out. There was no eye poke, but he kept reaching his fingers out, and basically
that's against the rules too.
Yeah, he took a point for that, and then the guy stopped putting his fingers out, and it resolved. There was no eye pokes. That's great.
Yeah,
that should be how it works. So when I said one more question, a big rake of questions came in. Quick fire these really stuff. Quick, and then we'll get out of here. Musasi McDonald, who wins?
Ooh, I don't know, and that's what I love about it. For some reason, I want to lean towards the bigger man just because of that, but I can also see Rory winning it. I think I'm just going to lean towards the bigger man who's just as accomplished, in MMA. Yeah. So I think I'm going to lean towards Musasi. I mean, you talk about two guys that could arguably be UFC champions right now, and they both fit the bill.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to go with the bigger man. Just simple as that.
I'm going to go with Rory. John Jones, November, MSG possible. I'm going to say yes, even though there's no real evidence. But Dana White was asked during a scrum, and he didn't say, oh no, that can't happen. He was kind of like, yeah, that'd be cool. So I'm just going to say that maybe he's heard something. You?
Yeah, man. I mean, it feels like the USADA decision is going to come down anytime soon. And most likely it's only going to be a year based on the way CSAC responded to it. I mean, Andy Foster very clearly said he feels like it was an accident, that it was negligence, that he wasn't really doping. And that's the CSAC saying that, so that's a pretty big recommendation. I think that he likely got a year, which is retroactive to 214, which means it's over the moment they deliberate 1 year. It's literally already over.
Awesome.
So he could fight, and he's training like a motherfucker, obviously.
He looks jacked out of his mind. Absolutely jacked.
Yeah. No Turner ball you needed.
Surma Burke, I think he's making fun of your list. He doesn't agree, but I'm not going to say it out on air because that gives away one of the picks. I think that's your list, is it?
Did I use a metric to come up with a top 10? No. It's as subjective as that. I tried to go off of people's records and what they did and what it meant, as well as, just the level of competition. The big thing for Jones, you could just continue rattling on things. But the thing about Jones is the way he beat people was more impressive than I thought anybody else had. Gustafsson was the only person to give him trouble. I do think he won that fight. I think Jones won that fight, I should clarify. But you just look at the way he was dominating people. He could do it on the ground. He had the wrestling, which was always an Achilles heel of somebody like Anderson. Anderson was almost beaten famously by Chael Sonnen. He got beat by a wrestler in Weidman who had some punching power. It kind of balanced out, and obviously he was clowning, so there's that aspect. But Jones had none of those perceived deficiencies, and he was finishing people, maybe not with the kind of KO power that Anderson had, but he was finishing people at a very high rate. It was starting to slow down a little bit more towards the end, as the competition was starting to rise a little bit more towards his level. But he had kicked DC, obviously that was overturned. But then GSP had a load of decisions and didn't have a finish for almost 10 years. It was BJ Penn all the way to Michael Bisping is what it was. Yeah. So especially with those top three, all that was taken into account was well-roundedness and the strength of the records and how tough are the guys they actually fought. Yeah. Light heavyweight was at a hot potato. I've already given away. It doesn't matter, I guess, but it was at a hot potato kind of like standstill. It was going from, Rampage to Forrest to Rashad to Lyoto to Shogun, and then finally that was when John Jones stepped in, and before that it was Chuck Liddell. So it just moved very, very quickly, and all of a sudden it just got absolutely clinched and stabilized. And if you think those people weren't juicing, I hate to break it to you.
As Nate Diaz says, or Nick Diaz, whoever it was, they're all on steroids apparently. Good show. Thanks for the nice comments. And as I said, if you can share this out, do it, because we're here generally every week, and the more people here, the funner it is. You should start a Facebook group or board. We have a Facebook page that we always put stuff up, and there's a lot of people under there that argue and comment, so check out that Facebook page. But I might do a group as well, because that could be fun. But again, Jason, thanks. Get some sleep. I'm going to go check that video. I'm going to leave a nasty comment in the comments after. I'm not, but
just
I'm looking forward to it.
Shit's weak.
Yeah, shit's weak. But yeah, thanks again for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.